Well, I was an actor for 5 years. I just found it really anxiety-inducing. I felt very, this is like confessional, felt like very like out of control as an actor. And you feel like you have to wait for someone to give you permission to do it. And for me, I'm sure there are other actors that disagree and I felt like being an artist or being like adding anything to the dialogue of our society. And I felt like being a writer gave you all those things, you're allowed to be in this industry. And you're allowed to like be an artist, you're allowed to like have a part of a dialogue with the society around you. And you're also in control of doing things. So like even if you've got time, you can contribute and do something. And then once you've done something, you can say, do you want to do this thing? And hopefully it turns into money. But as an actor, you're just waiting for something to happen. Unless you're a theatre maker, which is a very different thing. But yeah, I felt really out of control. And I think writing does it, answers all those big things that I had a problem with as an actor. The first thing is about finding your tribe. It's like finding people who want to make the work like you, have the same ambition for theatre as you, have the same sort of like, ask the same questions and do the same things. That's the first thing you need to do. Then how you do that is difficult, but maybe you'll see short play nights, you'll find people, you'll meet people socially, whatever. That's the first thing to do. The second thing is that like, the job of a writer isn't just to write a play where people stand in a room and director tells them to and say lines. That's a version of it that some people do that I think isn't the most useful thing in thinking about collaboration. Thinking about collaboration, what part of your job is to elicit directors, designers, actors, whatever, to be artists. That's a big part of your job, is to provoke them to do things. And part of that is writing things that are unanswerable. So, I think, talk about the danger of like those old playwrights, as they say, we're in a drawing room, backstage left is a table, blah, blah, blah. Like that, for me, is the least interesting thing you can ask a designer to do, is just dress a space. But if you can write a play where you don't know how to stage, say, a fire or whatever, suddenly you're eliciting a provocation for designers to make things and directors to find a way to make things. And what that does is if you work with people who you think are exciting, it allows them to make their aesthetic. And suddenly that's a collaboration. Suddenly it's not about me prescribing the way for designers, directors to make things or actors to say things. You're saying, look, where's our point in all of this? What's the result of all us being in this room making this thing? The one thing you have in your pocket is that you're you. And like, don't be afraid to be you. And like, if that means that you're a weirdo who likes playing, I don't know, whatever, like slash metal, that's more likely to get you any work than it is to pretend you don't. So the worst thing you can do is try and hide behind the veil of what you think people are supposed to be. I think you've got to find like your place in everything. You've got to find you in everything, and like you don't necessarily have to write from your experience, but it's got to matter to you. Like, it's interesting. I think that I'm at a point in my career now where I'm doing projects that aren't about me at all. It's about giving voice to other people. So I work with communities and say, let's try and like tell your story through the fact that I can structure theatre and we'll make something together. Young writers have to find their voice, but it doesn't necessarily mean what their experience is. It means like what do they care about and what their taste is. Voice doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, I'm X from X background doing this thing. It's like, look, you care about theatre, what you like. Write something in the way you'd like to do it, about something you care about. And to care about something doesn't necessarily mean you have to have lived it necessarily. I mean, it's useful if you have, I suppose. I suppose it's good for a way in, but like you can't, what do you do and done that then? Where'd you go? You can't tell the same story over again. And some people do that very successfully, but yeah. Before an idea, we talk about where we are and who we're talking to and what the society we're engaging with, which is a very difficult question to ask in London. When you work in Hull or Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Scott, wherever, like you've got to ask a question. You're in service of a community, right? Your job as a playwright, if you're in an arts council funded situation, is you're a civil servant and you're asking a question of society in the hope that the theatre has a function to make the society see itself and evaluate where they're at. With All We've Wanted and Everything, when we did in Hull, it was like, what is it to be a millennial in Hull? What does that mean? And then from that, we start thinking about what our narrative might be, which is like this idea of how did this happen? What's the genesis of being a millennial politically and socially and personally? And what's the journey they go on? How do we feel in that journey? And once you've done that, we think about the form of it. So like how we tell the story for this particular thing, which is where that gig theatre thing came from. And that was kind of where we're at, I think. But it all starts with where are we? And I think you'd be naive to dismiss that. There's a really good quote I read once. It was like Stephen Fry said, if you're looking for original ideas, the library's full of them. And like it's remembering, it's two things. Like I think writer's block for me happens when I don't know what I'm doing anymore, when I go off tangent. So like if I'm doing a project and I start losing faith or losing will. I remember like the question I'll ask is like, why are you doing this thing? Rufus Norris, I remember said this cool thing. He was like, if you get lost, you remember why you started the journey in the first place. So I think coming back to that question of being like, what am I trying to achieve by doing this? I'm telling this story in the hope that it might have this effect on these people and we might start talking about X, Y, and Z. Remembering that thing brings you back to it. And then like I always try and structure everything up before I start writing. So like I don't have that problem, I go with it. So like it's just about refining your intent and like making clarity of execution. So I'm doing this thing for this reason, this is how I'm doing it, and everything I'm doing from now on has about clarifying this exploration and this intention, this journey. But from when I like absolutely lose inspiration, I think I've got to read loads and see loads and try and get inspired again. Like read those people who excited you in the first place, you know, theatrically and intently and all those things. It's interesting because like I think I've worked out that my process is like I'll do it. So my process is I'll write it, then leave it, then I'll come back and read it, and I'll read it again. I'll basically see what I notice and try and address things that I think are problematic. And there comes a point where I read it and I don't notice anything more, and I also go, I hate this. And that's probably time to share it. And it's like I never want to see this again. And then you send it to someone else, and they say, by the way, these are things I've noticed. And like, okay, that's practical. I can deal with that. And eventually, I'll have something people don't notice as much.